Well, thank you, Chairman Cassidy, and recommend for holding this hearing and to all the esteemed members of the committee. It is an honor and a privilege to be able to introduce and recommend to you Dr. J. Bhattacharya to be President Trump's nominee for the Director of the National Institute of Health. And I had the opportunity to meet Dr. Bhattacharya during the COVID pandemic. A little bit about myself. I was governor of Nebraska at the time, but in a prior life, I actually was a biology major undergrad and worked in a protein biochemistry lab. I'm actually published. You can go find it out there. So for a brief moment in time, I was actually involved in the research world that the NIH gives out grants to help support. And during the COVID pandemic, obviously, we didn't know a lot. There was no playbook. And so I was getting great advice from our folks at the University of Nebraska Medical Center. But I also reached out to talk to other folks like Dr. Bhattacharya about how we should handle this pandemic. And one of the things about Dr. Bhattacharya is he showed great intellectual honesty and courage because he offered alternative suggestions about how to handle a pandemic. Now, we know now that young people are not really impacted by the COVID virus as much as older people are. And typically in the past, what we had done is we had a policy of let's protect the vulnerable people and let other people go about their life. And we really kind of turned that on its head for the COVID pandemic because we really didn't know what was going on. Dr. Bhattacharya helped give me a perspective, and it certainly demonstrated that he was thinking not just about how does the virus impact people, but if we do lockdowns and so forth, how will that impact people's health? And there were other impacts from doing those shutdowns. For example, we saw many school districts across the country shut down, and certainly in Nebraska as well. In March and April, we made those recommendations as well. However, in July, I stood with my director of education and said we expect kids to be in classrooms in August. And that was important because kids need to be in classrooms. We found out during the pandemic, one of the downsides of the pandemic is that kids learn better in the classrooms, generally with their kids. And so one of the results of that, according to the 2022 Nations Report Card, Nebraska scored highest in 4th grade math, and test scores in 8th grade math was second overall. And we did very well in reading as well because our kids were back in the classroom. And I saw states like California where they weren't in the classroom, and I just worry about the damage that did to those kids' education by not being in the classroom. Dr. Bhattacharya helped us think about broadly how are we going to look at everybody's health, not just about the virus, but mental health, education. And in fact, Politico, I know you are all familiar with Politico, they ranked all 50 states on things like health outcomes, education, economy, and social well-being. And Nebraska ranked #1 overall. We were Politico ranked us the #1 best pandemic response state because of our balance.
Who was governor?
This is why I was governor, yeah. This is why I was governor. Well, right, if there had been another guy governor, I probably would have bragged about him too, but this is about when I was governor. So, but the point is, it was going to people like Dr. Bhattacharya, who, you know, he's been published in 135 different peer-reviewed publications on, a variety of topics from law, medicine, economy, but having a broader perspective really helped us frame a pandemic response in Nebraska that helped us be very, very successful. And again, outside sources like Politico recognize that. So I think what you're going to get from Dr. Bhattacharya is somebody who understands the scientific method, that it's not all about, hey, we all agree on this. It's about we publish a research paper. It's out there for it to be replicated. Other people are supposed to replicate that and see if they get the same results. If they don't, then the papers disagree. That's okay. I read a lot of research papers during the pandemic. Guess what? A lot of them didn't agree. That's what science is about. It's not supposed to be about we all have a group think that this is the established way it is. It's about challenging ideas and about thinking, well, you've got this idea, prove it. And then, okay, you've done this experiment. I'm going to replicate it, see if it actually comes out the way you said it did. That's the way research is supposed to work. This is what Dr. Bhattacharya in the real world demonstrated during the pandemic, that he had the courage to stand up and say, wait a second, I know this is what the established way of thinking is, but I think there's an alternative way to look at it. And because he did that, because he had that courage, I can tell you specifically in Nebraska, we benefited, and our school kids benefited by being in classrooms. Our state benefited on a number of different areas that I just mentioned, whether it's health, social well-being, economy, education. We benefited. So I highly recommend to you, Dr. Bhattacharya. I think he's great. He's used NIH grants in the past, so he gets how that program works. He'll be a great person to be able to make sure that we've got the right way that we're distributing those grants with transparency, accountability, and accomplishing what we want to accomplish, which is that basic research, which is why we have the health system we do in this country today. So with that, Mr. Chairman, thank you.